Episode 5. Peril on Maiden's Desolation. 1. The Edge of Dusk. A red sun bled across the sky as evening fell over Westvale. The stormy clouds of the previous days were now torn and scattered, leaving streaks of crimson and gold along the horizon. Detective Rowan Byrne, Cassia Morell, and Dr. Sebastian Harland gathered near the docks, each dressed for the treacherous task ahead. Harland clutched a duffel of scuba gear, while Cassia carried a waterproof bag containing the delicate relics from the iron casket, parchments, the gold medallion, and hastily compiled notes from the library's archives. It was the evening they had chosen for their covert expedition to Maiden's Desolation, the notorious stretch of reefs rumoured to be Captain Hawksmoor's final resting place. Under dying sunlight, they made a final check of supplies, hearts pounding with anticipation and fear. Nearby, fisherman Grayling stood on his boat, the Sea Spirit, a stout vessel with peeling paint and sturdy lines. He waved them aboard with a gruff nod, the briny breeze ruffling his coarse grey hair. "All gear loaded?" Grayling asked, scanning the small group. "We head out soon, or we don't head out at all. Tide's changing." Byrne gave a tense nod. "We're set. Let's go." High overhead, seagulls circled and cried, as if sensing the tension that clung to the group. The cult was out there, somewhere, watching, waiting. If any watchers lingered on shore, they hid well among the swirling fog that was already gathering at the water's edge. 2. Slip into the waves. The Sea Spirit chugged away from the pier, leaving Westvale's lights behind. Cassia leaned against the side railing, the salt spray biting at her cheeks as they picked up speed. Dr. Harland, wrestling with a mild case of seasickness, took a seat on a bolted-down cooler. Byrne kept watch near the bow, scanning the gloom. The ocean was restless, but not violent. Long swells gently lifted and lowered the boat. The faint glow of the setting sun glimmered on the black water. Off to starboard, they glimpsed the shadowed cliffs where St. Felix Chapel crouched, its ruined silhouette barely visible in the waning light. Grayling consulted a handheld GPS device and a battered old chart. "We've got maybe 3 hours till slack tide at the reefs. After that, currents get dicey." Cassia stepped over, comparing his chart with the partial map gleaned from Hawksmoor's documents. "The coordinates converge near a jagged outcrop here," she murmured, tracing a spot on the weathered paper. "If the legends are true, the Crestfallen might have sunk just north of that outcrop." "Or it sank nowhere near it, and we're all fools," Grayling muttered darkly. Harland looked up, swallowing his queasiness. "We'll see soon enough. If there's wreckage, I should be able to confirm its era, assuming the sea hasn't claimed it entirely." A hush settled over them as the boat pressed on into the growing night. Behind them, Westvale shrank into a faint glow of lights. Ahead, the open ocean spread like a dark tapestry, broken only by ghostly lines of foam where waves met hidden rocks. 3. Glimmer of hope, flicker of fear. Time passed in tense quiet. The sky faded to deeper navy, and a half-moon rose through a bank of shredded clouds. Occasionally, Grayling cut the boat's engine to listen. Just the slap of water against the hull, the creak of wood, and the sigh of wind. Cassia hovered near Byrne, absently fingering the gold medallion through the waterproof bag slung across her body. "Rowan," she whispered, "do you think we're doing the right thing?" He nodded slowly, eyes never leaving the horizon. "If we can recover real evidence, treasure, relics, or even just proof the cargo is something more dangerous, then we can expose the cult's motives and end this." Harlan joined them, speaking softly. "Let's be ready for trouble. That cult knows we're out here." The swirl of tensions, both external threats and internal doubts, churned in Cassia's mind. In the gloom, her thoughts drifted to Avery Collins, the unfortunate fisherman murdered by this wave serpent order. She couldn't let them claim more lives. Grayling restarted the engine, guiding them onward. A faint glimmer on the horizon marked the last of the daylight. Night claimed the sea, leaving the boat's small running lights and the moon as their only guides. 4. Shadows at sea. Around an hour later, the boat approached the region known as Maiden's Desolation. Cassia peered over the side, seeing dark shapes of jagged reefs protruding above the water like rows of broken teeth. Waves foamed around them in swirling eddies. "We're close," Grayling announced, throttling down to a near idle. "Depth here is around 50 feet at slack tide, but it can drop off fast beyond the reef." Harlan donned a headlamp and read the coordinates from his phone. "A bit more to port," he said, voice jittery with excitement. "We'll anchor in the lee of that rock formation. Then, once we confirm the site, I'll dive." Cassia and Bayern exchanged a tense glance. Harland was the only one with real underwater archaeology experience, but both intended to suit up. Bayern, for his part, had basic diving certification from years ago. Cassia had done some recreational dives, though never in such perilous waters. The boat maneuvered carefully among swirling eddies. In the faint moonlight, Cassia glimpsed shapes that might be timbers or just illusions of shifting water. The reefs loomed, black on black, occasionally shining with phosphorescent algae. Suddenly, Grayling cursed under his breath. "Lights off the port bow," he hissed, pointing. Through the gloom, a smaller vessel's silhouette emerged, dark, low to the water, no running lights. It drifted about 100 yards away, barely visible. Another boat? Or the cult's watchers? Bayern turned off the Sea Spirit's deck lights, plunging them into near darkness. The hum of the distant boat's motor drifted over the waves. After a few moments, the silhouette vanished behind the rocky outcrop. "They're out here," Cassia whispered, heart hammering. "That has to be them." Harlan nodded, swallowing hard. "We'd better move fast." Grayling deftly dropped anchor in a relatively sheltered spot. The boat bobbed gently, scraping a swirl of kelp. If they lingered too long, the changing tide or the cult's arrival might trap them. 5. Into the depths. On the deck, Harland and Bayern carefully donned the scuba gear. Cassia zipped herself into a wetsuit, tension roaring in her ears. She double-checked her air gauge and weight belt. The night air bit her cheeks, but soon she'd be submerged in the cold Atlantic water, searching for a centuries-old wreck that might hold answers, or curses. Grayling set out a spool of guide rope, hooking one end to a buoy. "Tie yourselves off. The currents here can be tricky, even at slack tide. If you lose that rope, you could drift." Bayern tested his regulator, then looked at Cassia. "Ready?" She nodded, forcing her fear down. "Let's do it." Harland led the descent. One by one, they stepped off the Sea Spirit's stern ladder into the bracing sea. The cold struck Cassia even through her wetsuit, and it took a moment to catch her breath. Then she pressed the regulator mouthpiece between her lips, sank beneath the surface, and the world above vanished. Moonlight filtered weakly through the water, which was murky with suspended sand. Their flashlights pierced the gloom in narrow beams. Fish darted by, startled. Kelp swayed in a ghostly dance. Cassia clutched the rope. Beside her, Bayern's light swept across rocky outcroppings. Harlan took point, scanning the seabed for any sign of man-made objects. Their exhaled bubbles rose in silver streams, echoing in the watery hush. Minutes ticked by in eerie quiet. Then Harlan pointed excitedly at something ahead, a cluster of waterlogged timbers protruding from the sandy bottom, half buried in silt. Could this be the crestfallen's remains? 6. Wreckage found. Adrenaline surged through Cassia. She swam closer, shining her flashlight on the decaying wood. It was thick planking, bound by hand-forged iron nails. Harland motioned for them to fan out, searching for more structure. Indeed, more timbers emerged from the sand, forming a partial outline of a hull. Barnacles clung to every surface. A large section of the ship's frame lay collapsed, possibly broken by storms or the movement of the reef. "We actually found it," Cassia thought in awe. Hawksmoor's vessel, lost for centuries, lay in fragments beneath these treacherous waters. Harland waved them over to a spot where a piece of rusted metal jutted up, possibly a cannon or anchor. Carefully, he brushed away silt, revealing a muzzle shape, an old cannon. They exchanged triumphant looks. This was indeed an 18th century wreck, and likely the crestfallen. Barnes' flashlight caught a glimpse of something else, a scattering of crates or chests, battered and half buried. With cautious fin movements, he approached. Cassia followed, heart pounding. Could one of those crates hold the rumored cargo? They hovered over the largest crate. Its wood was blackened by centuries of decay, the lid partially split open. Through a gap, Cassia spotted something metallic, glinting faintly in the flashlight beam. She signaled for Harland, who joined them with a waterproof camera. He started to document the find, snapping photos as best he could in the swirling water. Then he carefully inserted a hand through the crack in the crate's lid. Slowly, he pulled out a small, corroded metal object, some sort of figurine or perhaps a metallic cylinder. A swirl of fine silt clouded their vision. Cassia tried to see what he had, but the sediment obscured everything. She glimpsed only a strange, twisted shape in Harland's gloved hand. In that moment, an odd hush fell, and a sense of dread prickled at her. The water felt colder. What if the cargo was truly something cursed? She forced the thought aside. They needed more evidence, perhaps a second crate or sign of Hawksmoor's personal effects. Harland carefully placed the object back inside the chest. We'll need a safer way to remove and preserve these, his hand gestures implied. We can't do it haphazardly. But time was not on their side. A dull vibration seemed to ripple through the water. Was it an engine above? Another boat? 7. Danger overhead. A sharp tug on the guide rope jerked their attention upward. Barn pointed his flashlight to the surface. Someone was yanking the line, grayling signal for trouble. Cassia's heart pounded. The cult's vessel must have arrived. She gestured to Harland and Barn. We have to surface now. Harland snapped a few more photos, then signaled compliance. Together, they ascended slowly, mindful of decompression. The water felt increasingly claustrophobic, as though the darkness itself pressed in. Upon breaking the surface, they heard raised voices. Grayling leaned over the side, yanking the rope. Get up here. Quick! Another boat's anchored off our starboard side. They're armed. The three divers scrambled onto the Sea Spirit, water streaming from their wetsuits. Cassia tore off her mask, gulping fresh air. Bayern quickly scanned the darkness. A smaller craft bobbed about 50 feet away, a spotlight trained on them. Figures in dark slickers stood in the boat, rifles or shotguns clutched in hand. A commanding voice carried over the water. Leave this place. The cargo must remain buried. You've been warned. Cassia recognized the wave serpent insignia on a patch of one figure's slicker, visible in the glare of the spotlight. The cult had arrived. 8. Standoff at sea. The cult's boat inched closer, engines murmuring. Grayling cursed, gripping the Sea Spirit's wheel. They so much as raise a gun. I'm ramming them. Bayern held up both hands in a calming gesture. We don't want bloodshed, he shouted. One cultist, hood partially obscuring his face, barked back, Then leave now. Our vow forbids any interference with the sunken cargo. Harland, breath still ragged from the dive, stood with arms raised as well. You've already killed once. We won't let you do it again. A second cultist aimed a rifle. Blasphemers! The cargo is cursed. Must we demonstrate further? Before anyone could reply, a third cultist reached under the boat's bench, hauling out a small object that glinted in the moonlight, a metal sphere, possibly an improvised explosive or flare device. Alarm jolted through Cassia. They were prepared to sabotage the wreck or sink the boat. Rowan, Cassia hissed, eyes locked on the sphere. We can't let them detonate anything down there. Bayern tensed, weighing his options. Attack the cult's boat? Flee? Meanwhile, Grayling started the Sea Spirit's engine, which rumbled ominously. "You have until I count to 3, the lead cultist declared, voice dripping with threat. 1, 2, 9, bursting into conflict. Desperation seized Bayern. He lunged for the nearest deck cleat, untying the anchor line, while Grayling slammed the throttle. The Sea Spirit roared forward in a tight arc, throwing Cassia and Harland off balance. The cult's boat tried to swerve, but the Sea Spirit's prow sideswiped it with a jarring crash. Shouts erupted. The cult's boat rocked violently. The man holding the metal sphere lost his grip, and it tumbled into the water with a splash. Cassia ducked, bracing for an explosion, but only a muffled thud echoed below, some device going off underwater, sending up a plume of churned water and foam. Gunshots rang out, bullets zipping overhead. Harlan dropped to the deck. Byrne yelled for everyone to get down. Grayling veered starboard, trying to put distance between them and the cult's boat. The two vessels circled, engines roaring in the dark, beams of flashlights cutting across waves. A stray bullet punched through the Sea Spirit's hull near the stern, sending up splinters. Water started seeping in. Cassia scrambled for the emergency pump, adrenaline surging. This was madness, a pitched battle at night among the reefs with lethal stakes. 10. Between the rocks. The Sea Spirit's engine sputtered, then caught again. Grayling cursed. "Taking damage. We can't outrun them in these reefs." Byrne spotted a narrow passage in the black outlines of rock. "Thread us through there. Maybe they won't risk pursuit." Grayling hesitated, but with the cult's boat angling for another attack, he gunned the throttle. The Sea Spirit skimmed perilously close to jagged stone, the hull scraping with a shriek. Cassia clung to the railing, heart in her throat. Water was pooling around her ankles now, though the pump was fighting to keep up. Behind them, the cult's spotlight flickered over the rocks, searching for a gap. They paused, apparently uncertain whether to follow into that hazardous corridor. But then the smaller boat advanced, determined. Harlan shouted, "They're still coming!" In the narrow pass, swirling currents jostled both boats. The cult's driver miscalculated, smashing the boat's side against a partially submerged reef. The vessel lurched, men stumbling. For a moment, it looked as though the cult's boat might capsize or retreat, but they corrected course, forging on, though more slowly. "That's our chance," Byrne hissed. "If we can slip out the other side, we might lose them." 11th. A relic, torn from the sea. Grayling navigated the narrow channel with white-knuckled concentration. Waves crashed over the rocks on either side, spraying the deck. In the swirling foam behind them, the cult's boat fell back a few dozen yards, but Cassia could still see their silhouettes moving about, weapons in hand. Out of the corner of her eye, Cassia spotted something bobbing in the water, a piece of wreckage or debris, perhaps blasted loose when the cult dropped their explosive. As the Sea Spirit rocked, the chunk of driftwood thumped against the hull, revealing an oddly shaped container lashed to it by some ancient rope, maybe part of the crestfallen's cargo. Heart leaping, Cassia reached down with a boat hook, snaring the container. She hauled it on board, an old wooden chest, no larger than a shoebox, heavily encrusted with barnacles. The rope was rotted, but the chest was intact enough to hold something. "What is that?" Harlan shouted over the roar of surf. "Not sure," Cassia yelled back. "Could be part of the cargo. Help me!" They wrested the barnacle-encrusted chest free, setting it on the deck. Salt water drained from its seams. It was locked, but corroded to the point that a pry bar might open it. Byrne, glancing over, realized the significance. They had salvaged a new clue, maybe a critical piece of the puzzle. But the cult's boat was still out there, closing in. "Hang on to it," he ordered. "We'll deal with it once we're safe." 12. Breaking free. At last, the Sea Spirit cleared the rocky channel into a more open patch of water. Grayling aimed the boat toward a faint gap in the reef, engine straining. Behind them, the cult's boat hesitated at the exit. The swirling water churned, and a large wave smashed the smaller craft sideways, forcing them to fight for control. "This is our shot," Byrne said, clambering up to the helm. "We'll circle wide and make for open sea, then turn back to Westvale around the outer reef. They can't match us in deeper water if they're banged up." Grayling, sweat beading on his brow, nodded. "Brace yourselves. Could be rough out there." Cassia and Harland secured gear and braced against the cabin. The boat pitched on larger swells as they fled the reef zone. The robed cultists' voices and lights receded behind them, overshadowed by the roar of the ocean. Then, as suddenly as it began, the confrontation subsided. The cult's boat dropped out of sight in the labyrinth of rocks, perhaps too damaged to continue pursuit or regrouping for another attempt. Either way, the sea spirit sped into the open water, battered but afloat. Cassia's limbs trembled with adrenaline. Harland helped her patch the bullet hole using sealant from a repair kit. The pump gradually reduced the flooding. Only once they were confident the boat wasn't sinking did Byrne allow a shuddering exhale. "We made it out," he rasped, still scanning the darkness for any sign of the cult. 13. A grim revelation. "Let's see what you found," Byrne said to Cassia, nodding at the barnacle-crusted chest they'd hauled aboard. She pried at the lock with a short crowbar. The rusted latch snapped after minimal pressure. Slowly, she lifted the lid. A pungent odor of decayed sea life wafted out. Cassia's stomach turned, but curiosity overcame revulsion. Inside lay a cluster of sodden rags that might have once been cloth or parchment. Embedded within was a small metal apparatus, an intricate puzzle box of sorts, no larger than a hand, etched with faint runic designs. Harland reached over, carefully lifting the puzzle box from the chest. Even corroded, it had an undeniable craftsmanship. Delicate, swirling lines reminiscent of waves, the same wave serpent crest repeated around the edges. A recessed cavity on one side suggested it might open, if one knew how. "That symbol again," he breathed. "Could this be part of the cargo? Some sort of container or mechanism?" Cassia gently probed the sodden rags underneath, but they disintegrated at her touch. She found only fragments of wax, maybe from a seal or candle, and a brittle piece of wood that might have formed an interior divider. Byrne knelt beside them, shining a flashlight. If the cargo contained several relics, some supernatural or contraband, this could be one, or it's a clue about how to open the rest. Dr. Harland frowned, turning the puzzle box over in his hands. "It seems locked or jammed by corrosion. We'll need more time to examine it properly, and specialized tools again, like Belmont's." A strange unease crept over Cassia as she stared at the box's wave serpent emblem. Something about it felt wrong. The memory of that ominous feeling underwater returned. Is this what the cult fears? 14. A hard decision. Grayling guided the sea spirit far out to sea before looping back around the reef system, giving Maiden's Desolation a wide berth. Exhaustion weighed on everyone. The night was nearly spent, and the first hints of dawn began to silver the horizon. Cassia collapsed onto a bench near the helm, the puzzle box cradled in a towel. Byrne sat beside her, letting the ocean wind tug at his hair. "We have enough for a partial triumph," he said softly. "We confirmed the wreck, documented it with photos, even recovered an artifact. That's evidence no one can deny." Cassia nodded. "Yes, but the cult is still out there, and they're willing to kill. We barely escaped." Harland joined them, setting aside his drenched wetsuit. "And the cargo is likely scattered along the seabed. If there's more of these puzzle boxes or relics, they could remain hidden for centuries, or the cult might retrieve them before we can." A bitter realization settled over them. Even with tangible proof, the situation was far from resolved. They had one artifact, but the cult had most of the site under their watch. Byrne exhaled. "Let's get back to Westvale in one piece. Then we decide how to proceed. Maybe we involve higher authorities, marine archaeological societies, the Coast Guard. This is no longer just a quiet investigation. Grayling nodded from the helm. We'll make port in a couple hours if the engine holds. Might be near sunrise. And so, battered by the night's chaos, they trudged on across the open sea, heads filled with unanswered questions. 15th Dawn Return. The sun was just peeking over the horizon as the Sea Spirit pulled into Westvale's harbour. Its golden rays lit the battered hull, revealing bullet holes, scratches, and fresh scrapes from the reefs. The boat bobbed wearily, as though relieved to be home. A few early risers along the dock gaped at the sorry sight. Grayling hopped onto the pier to tie off, ignoring their stares. "I need to fix my boat," he muttered, "and maybe my nerves." Byrne clapped him on the shoulder. "We owe you a lot. I'll make sure you're compensated." The fisherman only grunted, though his expression softened slightly. "Glad to be back alive. Just watch yourselves." Cassia, Byrne, and Harland offloaded their gear, along with the puzzle box. All three were soaked, bruised, and exhausted. Officer Gonzalez, summoned by a quick phone call, arrived a few minutes later, eyebrows shooting up at the sight of the damaged boat. "What the hell happened out there?" she asked, eyes flicking to the bullet holes. Byrne sighed. "We ran into the cult. They opened fire." Gonzalez paled. "Anyone hurt?" "Shaken up, but no major injuries," Cassia answered. She hesitated, holding up the puzzle box. "We recovered something from the wreck. It might be crucial evidence." Gonzalez scanned the artifact with wary curiosity. "You'd better tell me everything. Let's get you folks somewhere safe." 16. A safe harbor. They relocated to the police station, ironically the same small building Byrne had first visited not long ago. Inside an unused conference room, they spread out the puzzle box, the partially deciphered sea-worn documents, and the new photos Harland had taken underwater. Gonzalez listened in tense silence as they recounted the confrontation at sea. Her expression darkened when they described the explosives and gunfire. "We're dealing with an armed sect, bigger than I thought. They must be rooted in these waters for years, if not generations." Byrne concurred. "We have to suspect infiltration. They knew exactly where we'd be, and they were ready for violence." Gonzalez glanced at the bullet-riddled diving equipment bag. "I'll alert the regional authorities, maybe the Coast Guard, but I fear that might tip off the cult. Still, I can't keep this off the record any longer. A shootout at sea is no small matter." Harland rubbed his eyes. "We'll likely need a formal salvage claim to recover the wreck properly. Do things by the book. But that takes time." Cassia stared at the puzzle box on the conference table, fatigue pressing down on her. "And time is exactly what we don't have." 17. Unraveling the box. Despite exhaustion, they felt compelled to examine the puzzle box that very morning. Gonzalez offered to guard the conference room door while Byrne, Cassia, and Harland attempted to open it, if possible. Like the iron casket before it, the puzzle box appeared to have a hidden mechanism. Rust sealed some seams, but Cassia used a soft brush to clear barnacles and sand. Harland carefully turned a small etched wheel on one side, hearing a faint click. They discovered 4 rotating discs, each engraved with runic symbols. The discs could be aligned or misaligned. Possibly a code was required. "Let's see," Byrne murmured, flipping through the notes. "The runes we deciphered from the casket. We had references to a sunken cradle bound by 2 keys and the wave serpent crest. Maybe these discs correspond to those runes." Cassia cross-referenced Eliza's partial translations. "There's a phrase that keeps showing up. Cora Fidelis, or Cora's faithful. Another part references the symbol for deep tide. Might those runes form the correct combination?" They tried different alignments, mindful not to force the corroded pieces. At one point, Harland aligned the discs to mirror the wave serpent shape. Nothing. Then Cassia rotated them to form an older runic phrase she recognized from the diaries, Cora. Again, no effect. Finally, Byrne recalled the partial vow from the casket's parchment, our bond in the depths. He found matching runes for bond, depth, serpent, sea. Carefully, they aligned the discs. A faint internal click sounded. With trembling fingers, Harland pressed the top panel. Slowly, it slid open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside lay a small metallic disc inscribed with more runic text, some kind of seal, and a fragment of parchment wrapped around it. 18th, a dire prophecy. Unfolding the parchment, Cassia read the trembling lines of archaic script aloud. By the vow of the deep we stand. The serpent devours those who break the tide's command. In darkest watery crypt lies the cargo sealed, that never man nor time shall see it revealed. Lest doom befall the living world, the wave shall judge all who disturb the Black Pearl hoard. Black Pearl hoard? Cassia glanced up, eyebrows knit in confusion. A curse or prophecy that implied the cargo contained black pearls, or something metaphorically described that way. Harland stared at the text, face ashen. If these lines are to be believed, the cargo might hold objects or pearls said to bring doom. Whether that's superstition or something else, the cult's beliefs are unwavering. They truly think releasing it will unleash catastrophe. Byrne's hand went to his temple, massaging away a headache. So that's the core of their motive. Fear that the cargo's discovery will unleash a curse. Or maybe they use that story to cloak some criminal scheme. Either way, they'll kill to keep it hidden. Gonzalez, who had quietly re-entered the room, exhaled sharply. This is beyond normal policing. We have a potential religious or cult-based extremism fueled by superstition. I can request backup from the state or federal level, but we're dealing with a multi-layered situation. Illegal arms, possible murder, marine salvage laws, and an old legend. Cassia placed the puzzle box's seal and the parchment carefully aside. We need to figure out if there's any truth to this so-called doom, or if it's purely myth. Harlan nodded. Pearls do appear in maritime lore as cursed or haunted, but it might be a metaphor for precious items from the East Indies, some contraband that's dangerous or toxic, or even something more bizarre. No one had a ready answer. The morning sun glowed through the station's windows, painting the battered group in gold light. They had come far, risked life and limb, and still the solution lay out of reach. Was the cargo truly a threat to humanity, or was it simply valuable contraband locked behind centuries of myth? 19th. An oath renewed. Officer Gonzalez rubbed tired eyes. I'll speak to my superior and give them a sanitized version. Armed group, historical wreck, possible contraband. We'll likely get the Coast Guard's help. But there's a risk the cult will vanish or ramp up violence. Byrne packed away the puzzle box contents, then turned to Cassia and Harland. We keep digging. The next step might be to rally more experts, archaeologists, historians, maybe the local museum's curator, Graham Ellison. If we can show them this puzzle box and the casket relics, they'll have to believe us. And if we can identify what the black pearls or cargo truly are, that might sway public opinion and push the authorities to take the cult threat seriously. Cassia straightened. I'll head to the museum this afternoon, see if Ellison can help with the deciphering of the seal. Harland, maybe you can find a safe place to store these artifacts. Harlan nodded, exhaustion etching lines into his face. Agreed. We can't risk leaving them in the open. Gonzalez guided them out, telling them to remain on guard. The cult had retreated for now, but no one believed the threat was gone. Outside, the day was bright, the sky scattered with puffy clouds, as though the violent confrontation at sea belonged to another world. But the ache in Cassia's muscles and the bullet holes in the sea spirit's hull were grim reminders that the darkness lingered just beneath the surface. 20. Gathering storm. After a few hours of tense rest, Each member of the group set out on their assigned tasks. Harland called his contacts at a nearby university, hoping to secure a safe storage facility for the puzzle box. Byrne stuck close to the police station, drafting statements and fielding calls about the sea incident. Cassia walked to the Westvale Maritime Museum, the puzzle box's metallic seal carefully stowed in a padded envelope. The museum's main gallery looked deserted, echoes of footsteps on hardwood floors. At last, she found Graham Ellison, the elderly curator, leaning over a glass display case, rearranging artifacts. When Cassia explained the basics of their discovery, Ellison's eyes widened. She carefully revealed the puzzle box's seal. He gasped. This wave serpent crest, with runic script. I've heard rumors of it connected to obscure maritime cults. May I see it closer? He donned gloves and peered at it under a magnifying lamp. The script is reminiscent of a syncretic language, partly old Nordic runes, partly alchemical. There's a mention of a pearl that swallows souls in one obscure text I read years ago. Could that be the Black Pearl Hoard mentioned in your document? Cassia's pulse quickened. So you think this might reference real objects, black pearls rumored to be cursed? Ellison nodded, voice hushed. Yes. According to legend, these pearls came from an exotic land. Mariners who possessed them often met tragic ends. Some scholars called them the Devil's Pearls. If Captain Hawksmoor was transporting them, he trailed off, meeting Cassia's eyes with alarm. It could be highly valuable contraband, or something more sinister that believers interpret as cursed. Either way, it's a potent legend fueling dangerous fanaticism. Cassia thanked him for his expertise, carefully wrapping the seal again. A renewed sense of dread tugged at her. If these black pearls were real, could they pose an actual threat? Something poisonous, radioactive, or just so culturally significant that entire cults formed to safeguard them? 21st. A sudden twist. Stepping out of the museum, Cassia found Byrne waiting. He'd left the police station, wanting to check on her. His expression was grim. I just got off the phone with Dr. Harland, he said softly. He was heading to that safe storage facility at the university. On the way, he noticed he was being followed. Then his call cut out. I've tried calling back, but no response. Fear seized Cassia. You think the cult ambushed him? Could be. Officer Gonzalez has put out a notice to patrol the roads between here and the university. But it's a wide area. He's vulnerable out there. Cassia clenched her fists, panic threatening to overwhelm her. Dr. Harland had become integral to their quest, and he was their friend. If the cult took him, they might coerce him into revealing the puzzle box's secrets or the location of the casket relics. Byrne placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. We'll find him. I promise. Overhead, dark clouds gathered again, blotting out the late afternoon sun. The wind picked up, rattling shop signs. An incoming storm from the sea. Cassia felt a surge of foreboding. Harland was missing. The cult was still active, and if they believed the group had threatened their sacred vow, they might go to any lengths to silence them. Meanwhile, the revelation about black pearls, reputedly cursed or otherwise, hovered like a dark omen. In that moment, Cassia realized they were fast approaching the climax of this centuries-old mystery. The final confrontation loomed, and the waves of fate were crashing down. What lies ahead? Our protagonists have narrowly escaped a violent clash at sea, bringing back concrete proof of the crestfallen's existence and an eerie puzzle box hinting at black pearls with a fearsome legend. Yet the cult remains at large, armed and watchful. As they scramble to involve more authorities, Dr. Harland disappears under suspicious circumstances. In the coming episode 6, the search for Harland will drive the tension higher, leading Cassia and Byrne into dangerous territory. Hard choices, betrayal, and shocking truths about Hawksmoor's cargo will surface, pushing them all to the brink. The waves of Westvale's coast are growing dark indeed, and a storm is on the horizon that may change everything. Stay tuned.